I love living in Mi Phoenix, and I count on AT&T 5G to help keep me connected to all the things I love about my city. For me, that's local honey at the downtown farmers market, mis corridos, my shopping for retro furniture in the Melrose district, my date nights in Old Town Scottsdale, salud, and of course, my to-go champurrado. Delicioso.
It's not complicated. AT&T 5G is fast, reliable, and secure. And you can get unlimited plans starting at $35 a month per line for 4 lines with 5G included, connecting you to everyone and everything that is yours. Visit your nearest AT&T store for more details. AT&T may temporarily slow data speeds if the network is busy. Price for AT&T starter plan with autopay and paperless bill. Taxes and fees extra. Other charges, usage, and restrictions apply. 5G requires compatible device and not available everywhere.
The following paid program does not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its staff, or iHeartMedia.
An important message from the Attorneys for Freedom law firm. No attorney-client relationship has been created, and any and all information mentioned in this show may not be constituted as attorney-client privilege. The information shared does not constitute binding legal advice, nor should it be utilized in a court of law. If you have further questions or require legal representation, contact an attorney today. Aloha, and welcome to Law Talk Radio, brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom law firm. When you or your loved one's freedom is on the line and you need an aggressive and experienced law firm to defend you, look no further than the Attorneys for Freedom law firm. We only offer straightforward, well-reasoned legal advice, and we always promise to represent our clients the way we would want to be represented ourselves. And now, enjoy this edition of Law Talk Radio, brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom law firm, featuring attorney Marc J. Victor and your host, Rick Hamada, on News Radio 830 KHVH.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is 8:07 in the morning here on News Radio 830 KHVH, and as mentioned, it is Law Talk, featuring the Attorneys for Freedom and more, and again, highlighting our good friend, our brother. He is attorney Marc J. Victor. And Brother Marc, aloha to you, and good to connect again.
Hey, Brother Rick, aloha to you, and happy Saturday to everybody.
I'll tell you what, we're, once again, you're involved in so much, and you're joining us from Las Vegas at a phenomenal event that you shared with us before. Can you share about the event and how are things going?
Well, Rick, I'm at FreedomFest here in Las Vegas, and this is probably the largest gathering of pro-freedom people, or allegedly pro-freedom people, at least within the United States. I know they had well over 2,000 people signed up, and that was several weeks ago. And so it's just a huge event, and there's a gigantic main stage and tons of breakouts, and there's about 15 different breakouts going on at any one time. And we brought our whole crew here. We've been promoting not only the Attorneys for Freedom law firm, but also the global peace movement, Live and Let Live. There have been so many great people at Freedom Fest. We actually pre-recorded 12 different Peace Radicals podcast episodes. So for the next 3 months, we're going to be coming to people from Vegas at Freedom Fest.
Can you describe the differentiation of communities? For instance, when we talk about freedom, the juxtaposition of where you are today in Vegas, where you also have a practice in Arizona, and in comparison with Hawaii. What would you cite as differentiations between these communities?
Wow, it's a good question. Well, obviously, I think the most stark reality here is obviously the issue of firearms, right? I mean, Arizona is sort of an outlier in the United States in terms of what you might call pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment. I mean, here, if you're a resident of Arizona, you don't need a permit, you don't need a background check, you don't need a license, you don't need anything. You can actually buy from an FFL. That's a new firearm, or at least a licensed firearms dealership. You got to fill out a form, but you can also buy person-to-person private sale, which could occur at the gun show. We have regular gun shows here in Arizona. And you don't have to give anything except the cash for the gun. And so I think people in Hawaii might think that, oh my God, there's got to be so much violence and craziness in Arizona as a result of this policy. But, not true at all. The stats, well, of course, Hawaii has to be fair, has one of the lowest violent crime rates in the nation. But Arizona is certainly not higher and lower in some cases than some of the much more restrictive states, places like Illinois and New York and in California. And even I realize Washington, D.C. is not a state, but this is also one of the more restrictive areas. And so obviously this is a totally different mindset from what's going on in Hawaii right now. Now, we expect this to change, as we talked about on the last show, because of the recent Second Amendment case. There are going to be people in Hawaii carrying firearms publicly. But, Rick, I got to say, I've been a little disappointed with the show here so far. And actually, I shouldn't say the show. The show's been great. There have been so many people and presentations, and everybody's fired up, and everybody's fist in the air saying, yeah, we love freedom and this and that. But, it's easy to say you're for freedom, and it's a lot harder to actually be for freedom. And what I mean here is, supporting the rights of other people to do things that we personally don't like. And nowhere is this more evident than the case of illegal drugs and the drug war. And this issue came up at FreedomFest. The question on the table, it was done in the form of a trial, actually. They called a jury of 12 people, and both sides presented the case, one for legalization, one against legalization. And 5 of the 12 jurors, almost half of them, didn't agree with the case for legalization. In other words, they want to deprive other competent, responsible adults from putting things in their body that they choose to put in their body. And so to me, I understand the position very well. A lot of people from good intentions, coming from a kind heart, they recognize that a lot of these drugs are really horrible for people, and they don't like the effects from these drugs. They don't want to see people ruining their lives. I get that. But, as soon as we start using the government to impose our ethical intuitions on other people, guess what? Other people want to do the same thing to us, and they got ideas about healthcare, and they got ideas about education and what charitable things we should support and shouldn't support. They got ideas about gun ownership and say, why should people have guns? We have the police for that. And so, if either you want to get out of this situation where everybody's trying to impose their views on everybody else, or you just got to resign to that's the situation we're in. Everybody in every election is going to be trying to support their candidate who's going to impose their particular slate of ethical views on everybody else. And really, that's the theme of what Live and Let Live is about. We're trying to get people to really swallow that bitter pill, Rick, to say, look, I got to let other people live, even in ways that I think are immoral, unhealthy, unwise, unwarranted, but to draw the line at aggression, for sure. I mean, look, if people aggress, I don't care that they're using drugs or that they're depressed or have a mental illness or it's their deeply held religious conviction or something like that. Nobody gets to aggress on anybody else. And I think it makes a lot of sense to draw the line there. And indeed, that is really the fundamental notion behind the Live and Let Live global peace movement.
Have you ever encountered those that would question the foundation of 3L, of saying, Mark J. Victor, you're an advocate for anarchy. You're an advocate for no rules, no laws, nothing. We live as we live. We do as we do. There should be no limitations, restraints, regulations imposed by any entity. Mark J. Victor, you're an anarchist.
Right. Well, this is just somebody who would say that is somebody who does not have a good understanding of exactly what it is we're saying. And I recognize why somebody might say that, because what we're saying is, look, you don't get to impose your ethical views on other people, but there's still a legal system out there. And we feel very strongly we should have lots of laws and rules and regulations and criminal offenses. It's just that what we're saying is all of those should be consistent with what we call the Live and Let Live legal principle, which is basically don't be an aggressor. So an example would be the law against murder, the law against assault, the law against trespass, all of these. And then the big point on that, because, most people understand this, Rick, on an individual level, that most people are not aggressors. They reject aggression at least on an individual level. But when it comes to groups, sometimes corporations, or even the government, they say, well, wait a second, it's okay if the government initiates force. And really, that was truly the issue at the bottom of what made everybody upset, even during the corona thing, right? People had different ideas about how dangerous this thing is, whether masks are effective, how transmissible, communicative it is, whether the vaccine is good or bad or effective or not. These are all free people can disagree on these kinds of things. The question really at the bottom of it is who gets to make the decision for you? And what we would say is unless somebody is initiating force or fraud or coercion against somebody else or putting them in danger, they should be left alone. And so if we had just let the property owners make the decision, isn't that what we have now? If you want to wear a mask, you certainly are free to wear a mask. You know, the airline policy on masks, that ended abruptly with a court case, right? It still would probably be going on today if it was up to Joe Biden and his cronies. But yet what we were left with was people who want to wear masks, and those who don't. And, you know, I would actually encourage the airlines to go further here and say, you know what, this is a masking flight. If you want to wear a mask, you got to wear a mask on this particular flight. And I think a lot of people might be comfortable with that. It would be a great way to see what the actual market wanted, because my personal view on whether you should wear a mask or not, or take the vaccine or not, or how dangerous corona is irrelevant here. I'm not pushing my view. I haven't even mentioned what my view is on that or on drugs or on any of these issues, because we're trying to do something different here with Live and Let Live, which is not just impose our personal views on other people. We don't want to do that at all. We got to find a way for people who disagree, really in good faith, on an important, deeply held issue like abortion, like guns. How can we draw the line in such a place that we can still call each other brother and sister and get along and still have love in our heart for each other, even when we disagree? And that's really at the root. That's at the core of what we're trying to do with Live and Let Live.
Talking with attorney Mark J. Victor, of course, and this is Law Talk with the Attorneys for Freedom. And we're going to cover more ground with Mark, and then very special guest joining us in just a bit, and we'll introduce our good friend in a moment. But first, short break, and we'll continue with this edition of Law Talk here on News Radio 830 KHVH.
Law Talk Radio will return after these messages.
Let Engel & Volker's Honolulu simplify your life. Learn strategies on how a 1031 tax-deferred exchange can help increase your rental income and maximize deductions. The 1031 exchange is a powerful tool, and if utilized properly, it can change your life. Call 808-725-2000 to reserve your seat at our next educational seminar. Follow your dream home. Engel & Volker's Honolulu.
Are you frustrated with the constant bickering between the Republicans and the Democrats? Are you concerned about the ever-deepening divide in our country between groups of people who can't even seem to talk to each other anymore? Well, there's a new political movement growing throughout the world right now. The new Live and Let Live Global Peace Movement, and it's attracting reasonable people who recognize that competent adults should be in charge of their own lives. We are inspiring people to be good humans. See liveandletlive.org for details and become part of the solution.
Hi, folks. Rick Hamada here. You know, I tell you all the time, the law touches your life every single day, whether you like it or not. It's not a question of if, it is a question of when you may need legal representation, legal advice, your own attorney. It can be stratospherically expensive. However, the Attorneys for Freedom, Attorneys on Retainer program could be the answer for you. For a small initiation, small monthly fee, you can get all the benefits of representation from the Attorneys for Freedom law firm via the Attorneys on Retainer program. And let me tell you this, I signed up. I am a member of AOR because I see not only the value, however, I want to have the confidence that I have the Attorneys for Freedom in my corner. You can too. Log on to Attorneys for Freedom, click on the red Attorneys on Retainer tab, and you, my friends, could have legal representation today.
Welcome back to Law Talk Radio, brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom law firm.
Welcome back indeed. It is 8:20 in the morning, connecting with attorney Mark J. Victor and some very special guest coming up at the bottom of the hour. We're holding tight and getting caught up with Mark, who is once again sharing about a wonderful event that he is participating in, and it's been a pleasure starting the program with Mark. And Mark, I want to transition just a bit in the remaining time. Even in the last message, referring to live and let live, core essential function of government. What?
Yeah, this is an easy one, Rick.
Okay.
I think you have to really understand where government comes from for this point, right? We are the ones who create the government. And so the government can't do anything that we can't do, because the only place the government can get its rights to do anything or its power to do anything is from us, right? So government can't give us rights. It just doesn't have that ability. We created it. And so the only thing that the government can do is the things we can do for ourselves, which is to defend our rights. That is, in fact, that's exactly what the founders of our country said in the Declaration of Independence. The purpose of government is to defend our rights. What are our rights? We have negative rights. You have the right to be left alone, to pursue your happiness, to be in charge of all your property, which in my view includes your body, your property, your money, your time, your real estate. Those are the things you own. And that's what government can do, is defend your rights. People who think that the government can give us rights, I think, have it exactly backwards. Where would the government get the rights? How is the government the holder of rights to begin with? Where does it get its rights from? And how could it give us rights? It just makes no sense, because we created the government. So, and actually, Rick, I think you've hit on what the discussion that we need to have with our fellow Americans, our fellow residents of Hawaii. This is the underlying dispute. If you want to know the dispute between the right and the left thinks the purpose of government is something akin to, redesigning the world in the way they think it should come out. And they're using the government as an instrument of force to try to make that happen. They have a different vision of government. And thanks for asking that question, because we need to engage on that point.
Once again, talking with attorney Mark J. Victor, and Law Talk every Saturday at this time. I want to transition just a bit in the last few minutes, Mark, of this segment, and that has to do with 2A. Now, we're going through all the machinations. I had Police Chief Joe Logan on with me this past Thursday, and there's a whole spate of activity of trying to get the permits done and get them now. And there are some good friends of ours that are down at HPD every day. When is it ready? I want it now. The curious thing is that we're being told, well, within 30 days. Now, okay, fine. You have things you got to get done, but if it extends after that, there are going to be some people very upset. From a legal standpoint, what grounds would they have to file a complaint saying the unresponsiveness of government, HPD, etc., what legally is on their side?
Well, this is one of those areas where we don't have guidance from the United States Supreme Court, right? They don't say in the decision, hey, and by the way, the states have until this day to get it done. What we have is the due process clause, right? At some point, it's too long, but exactly what that point is, I don't know. My recommendation as an attorney, because I like to solve the problem, right, would be if 30 days passes and still nothing, we probably should start by sending them a letter. Hello, my name is Mark. I've been retained by so-and-so or the such and such group. And we were originally told it was 30 days. We think that's reasonable, but now it's over 30 days. And I'm retained for the purpose of bringing a lawsuit in federal court for damages. When's it going to be? Give me some information. Now, if they say, look, we're just a week away or something like that, then okay, fine. Let's just get it done, right? But if they say, no, it's going to be another 6 months because we're waiting for this study and that study or who knows what, well, then you may have to file a suit. And probably it starts in federal court. That's where I would start, because this is a federally protected right that we want enforced. And so really this is going to turn, Rick, on the people will be of two minds here in the government in Hawaii. Mind number one, the mind that I like, which is, the Supreme Court has now spoken. This is now the law of the land. Let's act in good faith because we took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and the Constitution says and means what it says here. People get to keep and bear arms unless there's a real problem. They have a right to do this unless there's some reason, and the Supreme Court has sort of charted out. We're going to have some litigation on the contours of those types of reasons. That's fine. If those people engage and say, let's get it done, that's the law of the land. Fantastic. I hope we got more people like that in government. Then there's the other side. We don't like what the Supreme Court did. We personally disagree with what the Supreme Court did. We're going to find wiggle room, delay, different definitions of things, and do everything we can possibly do to override the United States Supreme Court's judgment about what the Constitution says and means, because we've got our own view of what it says and means, and we're going to try to foil this. Okay, this is not upholding your oath to the Constitution. The Supreme Court gets to say, since Marbury versus Madison, what it means. They're the final word on that. Can be a debatable point constitutionally, and lots of people on the left now don't like that point. They say, well, the Supreme Court shouldn't, because they didn't like what the Supreme Court said. So they're saying, well, maybe the legislature should be the final word for what it means. But now think of all the laws that we wanted to have struck down, especially like the D.C. law that was struck down in the Heller case. This is why this approach makes no sense. It takes away a very important check of the legislature that the Supreme Court specifically had.
One quick thing, and that has to do with attorneys on retainer, and help us understand the correlation between AOR and the inevitability, in my mind, that there will be a need for legal representation in regard to 2A, because you have so many semantics in the definition of what is legal and illegal. For instance, you have a concealed carry. But if you, in fact, have a concealed carry permit and you brandish your weapon in a situation you deem necessary, ta-da, here we go. There's going to be all sides, one side against the other. Yes. Tell us about AOR and how that can help folks.
Yeah, and just to focus in on the issue you raised first, we've already litigated lots of this stuff in Arizona. For example, back when there really was a difference between concealing and open carry, just the very question of what is concealed. What happens if the officer can see, the tip of the barrel that was, the rest of it's concealed and the tip of the barrel is not concealed? Is that open carry? Is that concealed? These are all questions that are going to have to be litigated and figured out. And so, look, there's probably some people who would live their whole life without having to hire a lawyer. I don't think I've met any of them. Most people are going to need a lawyer at some point in their life, just like a doctor, right? Maybe there are some people who've lived their whole lives and they didn't need a doctor, but when they did, I bet they're very happy they had health insurance, because you don't want to pay the off-the-rack rate for the docs. You probably don't want to do that either for the lawyers. You can if you like. You're certainly welcome to come hire the Attorneys for Freedom and pay the top rate, but you don't have to do that. If you think about this in advance and you plan in advance, you can sign up. It's $100 to sign up. It's $25 a month. Maybe you'll never need a lawyer. You will have wasted $25 a month in this case, but you'll have the peace of mind knowing that if you need us, depending on the plan that you sign up with, if you sign up in the self-protection plan and you get caught on one of these gun crimes, maybe that's not well defined right now. There'll be tons of them. Yeah. I can even tell you, Rick, what's the definition of brandishing? I don't know. Nobody knows exactly what it means to brandish a firearm. And so if you get caught up on one of these things, you get charged with a crime. If you're in the self-protection plan, you just got yourself literally free legal services, because we're going to defend you. We're going to give you exactly the same defense. You're going to get the most aggressive representation my team can offer. You're going to get a team of lawyers working on the case, and you're not going to pay us a dime for legal fees. Even if you say, you know what, I'm going to trial. We say, great. We love trying cases at our firm. And so that's called planning ahead for what might be the inevitable problem. If you're in the other plans, what we call the standard plan, you can have any kind of, say you get sued, and anybody can sue you for anything. Maybe you committed a microaggression and somebody, whatever that means, and somebody wants to sue you for that. You still got to defend yourself, because if you don't, the other side will get what's called a default judgment. If you don't answer, if you don't show up in court, then you automatically lose. Okay, for $25 a month, you get us in somewhere between $175 an hour up to, I think it's $225. You reserve the right to pay my $650 an hour rate if you like at any time. That won't upset me. But if I'm you, I'd much rather pay the lower rate. You can get that done for $25 a month right now. It's a no-brainer. It's a win-win-win all the way around.
Be sure to log on to attorneysforfreedom.com. You'll see the link to Attorneys on Retainer, and we'll cover more ground coming up here on this edition of Law Talk with attorney Marc J. Victor. And our very special guest is next here on Law Talk, News Radio 830 KHVH. Good morning, Hawaii. It is 8:30.
Law Talk Radio will return after these messages.
This week's edition of Strange Crimes is brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm. Legal issues are a part of life, and lawyers are expensive. With their new Attorneys on Retainer program, you can have a trusted law firm on retainer for only $25 a month. Get the peace of mind you deserve. Visit online at attorneysforfreedom.com. On this week's edition of Strange Crimes, we have the story of a man accused of a Disney scheme involving an R2-D2 statue. Authorities say David Proudfoot posed as a Disney World worker and moved a $10,000 replica of R2-D2 from its place at the resort to an unknown location. When questioned by Disney security officers, Proudfoot said he was asked to move the statue to another location. When security officers offered to help, Proudfoot seemed confused as to where the loading docks were. So they called police. After further questioning, police carried out a search warrant at his home where they found thousands of dollars in Disney items, including a $799 gold necklace. Proudfoot then claims he just wanted to do the park a favor and show weaknesses in the security of the resorts. Proudfoot is now facing charges of third-degree grand theft and obstruction by false information. And that is this week's edition of Strange Crimes.
Have you or someone you know been offended at a comedy show recently? Have you had your feelings hurt? Did you disagree with the comedian? If so, you may be entitled to compensation.
Really? Because I'd like to speak to the manager.
Actually, no. This is Comedy you moron. Join us for Tuesday Night Comedy inside the Slack Key Lounge at Hawaiian Brian's, 1680 Kapiolani Boulevard, 2nd floor behind 24-Hour Fitness. Doors open at 7, show starts at 7:30. For a featured show followed by open mic comedy.
But the open mic is where they hurt my feelings.
Don't lose your hair, G.I. Jane. Visit ComedyUHI.com.
Let Engel & Volker's Honolulu simplify your life. Learn strategies on how a 1031 tax-deferred exchange can help increase your rental income and maximize deductions. The 1031 exchange is a powerful tool, and if utilized properly, it can change your life. Call 808-725-2000 to reserve your seat at our next educational seminar. Follow your dream home. Engel & Volker's Honolulu.
This is attorney Marc J. Victor with the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm. Our law firm is well known for zealously representing people charged with serious crimes. But did you know we also represent people in both personal injury and civil rights matters? If you've been seriously injured in an accident or as a result of a civil rights violation, we'd be happy to discuss your case with you. No charge for the meeting and no fee unless we recover money damages for you. Located in Bishop Square or online at attorneysforfreedom.com.
Welcome back to Law Talk Radio, brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It is 8:34 in the morning. Here on News Radio 830 KHVH and attorney Marc J. Victor, Attorneys for Freedom, on board for this edition of Law Talk. And Brother Marc, do us a favor. Would you please introduce our very special guest today?
Yeah, Rick, thanks for that. I have really the honor and pleasure of introducing Brandee Menino. She's been a resident of Hawaii for her entire life. In fact, so long, just coincidentally, she actually grew up across the street from our overall marketing manager at the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm, Eric. I don't think we've had him on the show yet, but I intend to have him on at some point. They played in the cul-de-sac together all day long before video games. So Eric was really excited to get Brandee on the show. She's the CEO of Hope Services Hawaii. They are an affiliate nonprofit organization of the Roman Catholic Church in Hawaii. And they are really dedicated to trying to do what we can to fix this huge problem we've got in Hawaii with homelessness. And she's got some ideas. She's someone out there, Rick, actually making it happen. She's making a difference. She's received a bunch of awards for this. And I know you know her as well. You've had her, I think, on before the show. So welcome to the show, Brandee.
Aloha and good morning. Thanks for having me.
Wow, it's reunited and it feels
so good.
Yeah. Brandee, aloha. I'm glad you're with us. Very, very much so. And Marc did an excellent job in summation of your mission. But if we could take it a little bit further, can you share more about yourself, family, and really the catalyst of your real passion in what you do?
Sure. Like you mentioned, I grew up on Oahu my whole life. I am Hawaiian Filipino, so my roots is here in Hawaii, but also from the Philippines as well. Mm-hmm. I'm the third generation from the Philippines from my grandfather. I think what I take from him is his resilience in being an immigrant and being persistent and just making a better life for our family. I'm also a grandmother. I'm a mother of 4.
What?
I couldn't believe it either. I read the same thing in her bio, and I said, there's no way there's got to be a mistake here.
Oh, my goodness. Great. Oh, my goodness.
Yep. So he's 4 years old. So, I try to do whatever I can to make sure when I leave our community that, our future generations have a better life than we have. That seems kind of grim, but definitely that's kind of been my focus. I've lived in Waipahu, but have lived on Hawaii Island for the last 30 years. My parents got their Hawaiian homestead land in Panaeva. And so my immediate family has lived in Hilo and the Puna area for all of my adult life. I'm in my 40s now. But just so grateful to live in communities where we take care of each other. I think I've seen that growing up with the Manmanos, that's Eric's ohana, in Waipahu, but also have experienced that here on Hawaii Island, where I've lived in Hilo and in KL.
Yeah. Going back with Brandee, and I use the word passion. I don't use that term loosely. Your work with Bernadette and the church, and so the community, the consistency of your message and your dedication to the objective of helping resolve what is arguably the number one issue, which is the incredible cost of living in Hawaii as it equates to individuals who find themselves homeless and beyond, the layers that are under this umbrella. Brandee, if you were speaking to somebody who was not familiar with Hawaii and the issue of homelessness, what would you share with them about our situation and possibly juxtapose that with other communities?
Yeah, when you think about Hawaii, what I often explain is that Hawaii has the nation's most expensive housing markets, and costs are rising fast. Owning a home costs more. Renting a home costs more. Rents in Hawaii are significantly outpacing the rising inflation. Housing in Hawaii is expensive, and in part because it is in short supply compared to the demand. And what you'll see in Hawaii visibly, if you land on the island of Oahu, is those who are unhoused. A lot of families, a lot of individuals are really just priced out of housing, and just living and experiencing homelessness on the streets. People are traumatized, victimized, and the issue and the challenges just compounds them just being unhoused. Healthcare is inaccessible. Assistance, because especially for my island in Hawaii County, access is transportation and access to services for help is dire, and it's difficult for people to receive help. So it just compounds the housing market, the availability of that. Families in Hawaii being a housing cost burden. They're just not making enough money to keep up with the cost in living in Hawaii. The worry I hear from my community is that, our children are going to be moving away. They just can't live. They can't afford to live here. Our future generations, our workforce are leaving our community. It just like, what are we going to do to help address the affordability and housing in Hawaii? Because then, what you see in homelessness is just one of those causes, right? Because they can't afford to live in our community.
So I'm going to turn it over to Mark in a moment, but I'd like to get a part of the conversation. You mentioned supply. So we have all different players in that area. I think recognizing that land utilization is a very important part. We have private trusts. We have government parcels and massive amounts of land under their purview. And the efforts to alleviate those controls so we can produce more housing and we can perhaps be even more affordable. A recent UHERO report of the University of Hawaii Economics cite that over 20% of cost of housing is associated with regulatory expense. I mean, that right off the top, if we alleviate that, perhaps we'll be on the road. Mark, I'll turn it over to you for some thoughts with Brandee as well.
Yeah, one of the first things that crossed my mind as she was introducing herself is that she's here because people immigrated to Hawaii. And I think that it's important to pause and make a distinction between what I would call the craziness that we're experiencing right now in our country as a result of just an incoherent immigration policy with people risking their lives to come across the border. It's okay to be against such a circus at the border and yet still love the people who are coming to the United States to pursue a better life. We are historically friendly to immigrants in the United States. And we should keep that in mind because what Brandee is doing to help people here in Hawaii is a result of immigrants coming to Hawaii. And I hope we never forget that. I think that's really important. The second thing that I think is important, as she talked about, we take care of each other here in Hawaii. I love this point. As we've talked about, you've asked me in the past, Rick, what do I love about Hawaii? It's really this, what I call the aloha spirit, the real meaning of the aloha spirit, not just the fun of flashing a shaka, in traffic or something like that, but what it really means to help people. And it's very important to highlight that what's going on here is outside the government. And as this is outside the government, it is private, it is voluntary, it is people helping people because they want to help people. It is not the government taking money from people against their will and redistributing it. That's a different issue. That is putting good ethics, things we should be doing, into the law. And really, that distinction is such a critical distinction for people to understand. And then, of course, there is no escape from supply and demand, right? We have to be clear about this. The reason we call it a law of supply and demand is because it is a law, right? If you increase the supply, and the supply of people who want to live in Hawaii is ever increasing, this likely is very proportionate to the number of people who have been to Hawaii. And because once you've been to Hawaii and you see what Hawaii is like, of course you want to live in Hawaii. And the supply of land, of course, is artificially low. Now, I'm not saying that we should open up every square inch of the state. We need to have smart development. And I think this has been shown that it can be done. But when you add on top of this regulations that are horrible regulations, and I know, Rick, I deal with this when I hire somebody and I have a decision, should I hire them in Hawaii for my firm or should I hire them in Arizona? The very strong financial influences are pushing me to hire them in Arizona because we think we're helping people in Hawaii, the workers of Hawaii, but what we're doing is making it harder to create jobs in Hawaii. Piling on regulation and taxes and burdens and all of this makes all of the cost of living higher in Hawaii. The Jones Act is part of this. This is crony capitalism as well. And all this can be not completely fixed, right? Because we still have mentally ill people, we still have people with drugs, but we can dramatically improve this problem if we get back to the principles that our nation was founded on.
There was way too much there. I had my GPS on trying to navigate in. So I'll turn it over to
Sorry,
Brandee.
brother.
No, that's all right. No, but that stream of consciousness, it's emoted by many at home. I would just chime in briefly that there aren't people that are coming to Hawaii to live. For the first time in the 10-year census from to 2020 to 2010 to 2020, we had a net loss of population, which is the first time. But
does that mean, Rick, that people aren't coming, or does it mean that the people who are here in Hawaii are leaving faster than people are coming?
Oh, no, they're absolutely leaving. Absolutely. Yeah. And we have that dynamic. But then again, people relocating, no, that is on the downside too, because, again, Brandee can speak to it, it's the fundamental way of life. It's just hellaciously expensive. And I go through it, my friends, my family, we're all facing and doing what we can. Brandee, I've always maintained we should live a life where we thrive, not simply survive. And that's what we find that's going on here in home.
For sure, definitely. I think one of the things I heard Marc say was that we need to not just take every square inch in our community, but build smarter. So not only build, but from a report that I had read with Appleseed's Hawaii Budget and Policy Center, that a lot of our especially on the neighbor islands, there are vacant homes. From 2017 to 2020, 40 and people buying from out of state. So 42% of the homes purchased in Hawaii County were by non-Hawaii residents, and then 35%. On a statewide level, our homes are being left vacant. Like people are building, but then they're leaving it vacant. So there are housing in our community, but it's left vacant. And then there are housing being bought by non-Hawaii residents. So that's taking up supply.
What's the cause of this problem?
Because it's not their first home.
Well, but why would somebody leave a home vacant? Now, see,
exactly.
I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but this smacks of ideas of rent control, right? Because this is why we have abandoned buildings in cities, because what happens is governments come in and they say, look, we're going to control the amount of rent that can be charged, because they think they're helping the homeless and people who can't afford. And what happens is the owners of these buildings can't make a profit. They can't pay their taxes. They can't do the maintenance. So they say, it's easier to just abandon the property because I can't make any money of it. And this is why we get this crazy economic situation of owners abandoning valuable property. This is because of crony capitalism, which is motivated by people of good faith who want to get things done properly, but just don't understand economics.
We're dialed in together this edition of Law Talk, and again with attorney Marc and with Brandee, and we are going to take a very short break. When we come back, we're going to focus more on the issue of homelessness and perhaps with a legal perspective with attorney Marc J. Victor. Stand by. It is 8:48. Back in a moment.
Law Talk Radio will return after these messages.
Hi, folks. Rick Hamada here. I tell you all the time, the law touches your life every single day, whether you like it or not. It's not a question of if, it is a question of when you may need legal representation, legal advice, your own attorney. It can be stratospherically expensive. However, the Attorneys for Freedom, Attorneys on Retainer program could be the answer for you. For a small initiation, small monthly fee, you can get all the benefits of representation from the Attorneys for Freedom law firm via the Attorneys on Retainer program. And let me tell you this, I signed up. I am a member of AOR because I see not only the value, however, I want to have the confidence that I have the Attorneys for Freedom in my corner. You can too. Log on to Attorneys for Freedom, click on the red Attorneys on Retainer tab, and you, my friends, could have legal representation today.
Are you frustrated with the constant bickering between the Republicans and the Democrats? Are you concerned about the ever-deepening divide in our country between groups of people who can't even seem to talk to each other anymore? Well, there's a new political movement growing throughout the world right now, the new Live and Let Live global peace movement, and it's attracting reasonable people who recognize that competent adults should be in charge of their own lives. We are inspiring people to be good humans. See liveandletlive.org for details and become part of the solution.
Let Engel & Volker's Honolulu simplify your life. Learn strategies on how a 1031 tax-deferred exchange can help increase your rental income and maximize deductions. The 1031 exchange is a powerful tool, and if utilized properly, it can change your life. Call 808-725-2000 to reserve your seat at our next educational seminar. Follow your dream home. Engel & Volker's Honolulu.
Welcome back to Law Talk Radio, brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm.
Once again, welcome back. It is News Radio 830 KHVH. It is Law Talk by the Attorneys for Freedom, featuring attorney Mark J. Victor, and with Brandee on board today. Great conversation because it is so timely, relevant, and especially, here we go, in an election year, homelessness is going to be invoked in promises and plans and et cetera. But there are moments of inertia, Brandee, that can be very frustrating. What is the key ingredient to really get a pace moving at a faster clip in ensuring that we're taking care of those who need our assistance?
So I know we've had a conversation about affordable housing, right? So that's the long term. Trying to find, housing now, it's very difficult, even with people who have housing vouchers. So these housing vouchers to make rental units affordable. So in addition to just focusing on how we're going to increase the supply of affordable housing, right? Visibly, connecting. How do you connect with people so that we can address homelessness in our community? There are short-term solutions, how to help people. During COVID, we've definitely have seen that healthcare is housing and housing is healthcare. I mean, we were all trying to, the message was isolate, quarantine, stay in your homes. For those who are experiencing houselessness, that wasn't an option. I mean, we tried to help by setting up hotel rooms at our local Holiday Inn or in Kona, Kamuela Inn, in Waimea, so that we could help save our kapuna, right? Our most vulnerable. We were telling the seniors this was something that they can die from. So we're whoa, what about our unhoused kapuna that are on the streets? How are we going to help save them? So it's temporary shelters. We opened up, besides those hotel rooms, another 2 temporary shelters, one in Kona, one in Hilo, because experiencing homelessness on the streets is life or death. Someone can die on the streets. People are dying on the streets. And what keeps people safe is their home. Someplace that they can close the door, lock the door. But in the absence of that, there's temporary solutions, sheltering, moving them quickly into housing, existing housing with a voucher, getting them the supports that they need while they're in housing so they're stabilized in housing, whether it's mental health, getting them connected with those services, whether it's substance abuse services. But it's our answer and our focus has always been, we need housing, move them in, put them in temporary sheltering. When housing is absent, we need to get people off the streets. And we've really tried to focus, because that's a huge problem. We've been focusing and targeting our efforts here on Hawaii Island on families, because we know that when you have babies under the age of 5 and youth that are experiencing homelessness on a long-term basis, the trajectory of their lives, is impactful. From impacts their education, impacts the family life. So we've really had campaigns during COVID of no child left outside, help us to identify these families. We want to get them into hotels if housings are absent, if our shelters are at overflow. But we really need to really look at how to help those who are most vulnerable with the resources that we have, and do that timely. My second worry is all the people that are on the verge of experiencing homelessness because, again, their rent burden, they can't afford their rents. There were providers during COVID that are still providing rent assistance throughout the state just to keep them in their homes now. But they are already falling into homelessness. There are families that are newly experiencing homelessness, so the problem will get worse when we can't prevent families from getting evicted.
We have just about 3 minutes remaining or so, but I want to turn it, Brandee, if you could, tell us how to connect with you, how folks can learn more and support through Hope.
Yep, you can call me at 808-935-3050. You can also connect with us on our social media pages on Facebook and Instagram, Hope Services Hawaii, and our website at www.hopeserviceshawaii.org.
And with the remaining couple of minutes, Marc, I'll turn it over to you. Final thoughts today.
Yeah, Rick, I'm so glad and thankful that we have people like Brandee out there who are attempting to solve these problems, really to alleviate suffering at the ground level right there where we need it right now. But as you know, my focus is more the 30,000-foot view. Like, how do we solve these problems globally? First of all, the first thing that seems so obvious to me is Chinatown. This place should be the center of attraction for people. Instead, we got boarded up places, things out of business, homeless all over the place. We could go a long way if we really opened up that place to be developed and invited businesses to get started, maybe even privatized some of the property down there. I think we have to think of homeless in two different groups, right? Those who are really trying and just can't make it, and those who have mental illnesses and substance abuse. We got to get help to those people. But for the people who really want to work, maybe we should stop spending the huge amounts of money we're spending on healthcare for the homeless and instead give them a ticket to a place where really they need labor so bad. And there are great job opportunities there are places in the country where the economy is booming and they need people to work. Let's get these people trained, give them an option, buy them a ticket, send them out there. It's a win for the people in the community in which they arrive who need labor. It's a win for the person who's off the street, now has a great job. And it's a win for the people in Hawaii because we're reducing one more homeless person on the street who's horrendously expensive for the budget because we give them health care and everything else. We got to start thinking outside the box if we really want to solve the problem long term.
I want to thank Brandee so very much. Brandee, in about a minute, what would you like to share before we go?
I just wanted, it's such a pleasure to be here with the both of you and to talk story. If there's one thing I think I can leave for our community is that there are a lot of people suffering. We need your help. It takes a community to address this issue, and we need all minds, all hands on deck, and to work with urgency. Mahalo.
And there we go. Brandee, thanks so very much. Always a pleasure. And we'll chat again soon. And Attorney Marc J. Victor, thank you, my brother, for being a part of the program every single week on Law Talk. And just do me a favor. Could you put $5 on 17 Black on the roulette table?
Brother, it's the fastest hour of my week every week. It just rolls by like a flash, but it's always a great show. It's always great connecting with you and throwing these same ideas. We're always talking about how, look, freedom is the solution. What's the problem we're talking about? Freedom and a free economy and a little bit of be a good human really is the solution here.
And there we have it. Attorney Marc J. Victor and Brandee Menino, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day. And for folks, stand by. Stand for Hawaii is next. For this, Law Talk, every Saturday at this time, and we'll see you next time.
Peace, guys.
Mahalo for joining us on Law Talk Radio, brought to you by the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm. If you have further questions or require representation for a legal matter, please visit us at attorneysforfreedom.com.
Circle K is America's thirst stop. And yours, especially when the weather gets... and you need to stay refreshed on the go with ice-cold Circle K favorites like freshly ground iced coffee, Froster, Polar Pop Cup, and more. Think of it as the ultimate thirst-quenching, totally rehydrating summer splash zone. When life's go, 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 make us your first stop. Because Circle K is America's thirst stop.